What's up, Wargamers? Welcome back to World of Wargaming. I'm Isaiah, and welcome to our second iteration episode. Episode is the word I'm looking for. Table Talk, where today we're going to get into talking about some terrain. The focus of today's terrain table talk is on just different types of terrain, the different options that you have available to you as a wargamer. Especially, hopefully, this is meant to be helpful for our fledgling wargamers, people who might be slightly newer to the hobby. And we're going to start at the bottom cost-wise, and we're going to scale our way up to the top of your options. So at the very bottom of the pyramid, we have your books, soda cans, Pringle cans, cereal boxes, things, just regular household objects that are laid out. Sorry, my dog's going crazy. That are laid out to create some line of sight blocking terrain and some obstructions. There's not really a lot of thought that needs to go into that. You just grab some objects from around the house and get after it. Your second step up the pyramid is going to be your handcrafted pieces. Now, these can be very simple. These can be very elaborate. But the trade-off that you make with the handcrafted is you're trading off time for cost. You're using more of your time, less of your money. This is probably the best example of a handcraft that I've ever done, is this big kind of portal thing with the steps. This is all just XPS foam, and then this is a piece of saran wrap that I just stretched out and laid in there. You're looking at, a few hours to a few days to a few weeks. I am not the best at this. My friend Mike Crow, who's played some games, I haven't seen him in a while, but he's pretty good at handcrafting, and my buddy Joe that plays Space Weirdos and What a Cowboy, he's pretty good. He's actually got some pretty big handcrafted projects going on. I may see if I can snag some pictures for him to give you some examples of that. But that's your next step up. And it's a great option if you're on a tight budget, but you got plenty of time. Next is going to be your, oh snap, it's going to be your basic MDF kits. These range are very kind of widely in cost, but your unpainted MDF is usually going to be pretty cost efficient. You're looking anywhere from 15 to maybe 40, 50 bucks or more, depending on how big the kit is. But cost-wise, your unpainted MDF is probably going to be the next stop up the list. It does require more work. You got to build it. You got to paint it. So there's a time investment. You're kind of middle of the road on that time versus cost spectrum. It took me a long time to get into MDF. For a long time, I didn't really like the way it looked. But I've definitely come around on that. For this kind of terrain, there's a lot of really good vendors out there that have some pretty good prices. I always would recommend TT Combat. TT Combat has a very, very wide range. They do a lot of sci-fi, historicals, modern. They do a lot of different stuff. Another is Sarissa Precision. I would recommend Sarissa probably more towards the historical lines. They do some other stuff, but their historical stuff and their modern stuff is just top tier. Very, very good. Sarissa's kits do generally cost a little bit more than TT Combat, but I think both of them are shipping from the UK, so you're going to have to deal with that as part of the purchase. Now, while we're on the topic of MDF, let's talk about my favorite type of terrain, currently and personally, and that is the pre-colored MDF kits. Most of mine are from Black Site Studios, but I do have several pieces from War Cradle as well. This, in my opinion, is the absolute best way to go. You're going to pay a little bit more for it. Sometimes you're going to pay a lot more for it, but it's ready out of the box. All you have to do is put it together. Now, if you want to take that further, you can weather it, you can add vegetation and stuff around it. There's a lot of things that you can do to enhance these kits. But you can also take them out of the box, build them, and they are ready to go. Now, What some may consider a small downside of MDF is that there is a smell to it that takes a little while to air out. I personally love it. It's like right up there with fresh cut grass and gasoline at the marina in summer as in you know, top tier smells in my opinion. But that's because it's all laser cut, and so it's cut out by, you know, fire, by laser. So there's a burnt wood smell to the kits that, yeah, this one's been together for a few months, and it smells pretty. It just smells like wood. It just smells like MDF. Nothing special, but there is a fairly strong smell. So if you are a person who is sensitive to those types of things, that may be something to consider when buying these. Maybe buy it, open it up, and then just put it somewhere to air out for a little while if the smell is something that's going to bother you. And again, these kits tend to cost a little bit more, but in my opinion, this is the best option. Another option, and this is one that I have never used. I've seen them. I have some friends that have them. My buddy Orc Tim had some, and Bill, who plays a lot of games with me on the channel, has a set that he's never put together, and that's the Battle Systems Terrain. It's cut out, pre-colored cardboard sections that clip together with little clear clips. And the buildings, when they come together, look really, really good. I'll track down some pictures and we'll throw them in the video maybe over this while I'm talking. And cost-wise, for the fact, considering that it comes pre-colored, pre-painted, it's fairly easy to assemble, and how good it looks once you get everything put together, it's a very, very, very solid option. Like I said, I don't have any of it. I've not played on any of it, but I've seen a lot of it, and I've looked at it many, many times and debated pulling the trigger. They tend to come in large sets, so like fantasy set, sci-fi set, whatever set. And I want to say they range like maybe $100 to $200, depending on how big the set is. And I could be wrong, that I'll have to double check those numbers, so don't hold me to that, please. Another option, as we're getting closer to the top of the pyramid and cost and stuff, is the Warlock systems. They make terrain and stuff mostly for RPGs, for TT RPGs. But there's a lot of those kits that can very easily be used for Wargaming, especially ones that are like, you know, the market, where you got vendor stalls and stuff like that. And for the purpose of this video, we're talking more about stuff like they have a lot of wall sections, like castle walls, dungeon walls, individual tiles, and it all just kind of fits together. Really nice stuff, but pretty pricey for what you get. The kits are usually like $50 to $100, and they don't normally have an enormous amount of stuff in them, but they are an option if you need something that's very niche or very specific. There's a good chance that they might have it for you. Next on our list, we have hard plastic. Now, for a long time, this is all that I wanted. This is all that I like to use. And for a reason. It's very, very sturdy. It looks very, very good on the table. It's usually pretty easy to paint. The downside of it, especially these kind of pieces from you know where, is that they are ungodly expensive for what you get. Now, there are companies like Warlock has a few plastic kits that are really nice that range in price from reasonable to exorbitant. They look great. You do have to build them. You do have to paint them. They cost a lot more than MDF. And in my opinion, I don't think there are as many options for this kind of terrain as there are for MDF, because the MDF is much easier to fabricate. They can cat out the design, run it through, put the plates of wood on the machine, and in an hour, however long it takes those machines to work, you have the sprues for a piece of terrain. Whereas this, they have to sculpt it, either digitally or by hand, most likely digitally. Then they have to create a mold and cast it, and it's a lot more work goes into making one of these. Maybe not work, but cost goes into making these than does making the MDF. But there is one other option that we haven't discussed yet that can give you this at a fraction of the cost. And that, my friend, is 3D printing. 3D filament printing. FDM is the most cost-effective way to get really, really nice terrain on your table. You can find tons of files for free on thingiverse.com. All you need to do is slice them, very minimal preparation on your end, and then press play and let the printer do its thing. Now, there is the initial investment cost of a printer, but you can find a pretty decent FDM printer for a pretty small amount of money. I have a Voxlab Aquila that I bought years ago, and I paid like $150 for that printer. It's a Creality Ender clone, and it works great, man. It's all this stuff that you see here. This is all coming off of that machine. It takes a long time to print something, and you do have the recurring cost of spools of filament. But a spool of filament is maybe 15 to 30 bucks, depending on what kind of filament you buy, and you can get several buildings like this out of a single roll. You do have to paint it. Well, I guess you don't have to, because the printers now, they have printers that are printing like a whole bunch of different colors, so you might not, but generally speaking, you're gonna have to paint it. But it's very, very quick and easy to paint these things. I haven't done a lot of 3D printing recently because I've been so into the MDF and stuff. And the printing is kind of a hobby unto itself for learning your printer, maximizing your printer. My buddy Joe's really, really good at it. He's got his printers absolutely dialed in just to the max. And they put off beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pieces for a lump sum initial investment and then for a very small recurring supply fee. And that, my friend, will conclude today's episode of Table Talk. I hope that you found it informative or mildly entertaining. If you've got any other recommendations for different types of terrain that you can use to kind of get into the hobby and to get your table looking good that I didn't mention, definitely let me know in the comments. I would love to see them and check them out. Thank you so much for tuning in, hanging out, and talking terrain with me today. I hope you have an absolutely amazing rest of your day.